Hi Christopher, I'm going to give you some feedback here on your Writex 1 on Give War a Chance. You may already have seen that I have also revised your text and uploaded a revised version to IceCore. The way that this works is that I first look at your text and I correct any errors that you might have made and give you some commentary, usually things to reflect upon. Suggestions for how the text might be improved. And then in the videos I try and sum up my general impression of your text and tell you a little bit about how you can improve this for the future. So what I do here is I talk about the structure of the text, the organization, a little bit about the language that you have produced, as it were, in terms of whether or not it's correct, in terms of things you might want to consider paying more attention to in the future, and then finally what you can do as a whole to improve your writing. So the first thing I would like to say is that, and I think this is also reflected in the amount of corrections that I've made in your text, that it is a very good text. It works well. So that means that you have, in terms of organization and structure, that you're able to write paragraphs that are that communicate very clearly, and where it's obvious to the reader what is it that you want to say, and you sort of follow this rule that each paragraph must have a clear and defined message, and there has to be coherence between the paragraphs as well. And I think you managed with both. There are exceptions where I think you can do things differently. You can see that in the text. I think it's first page 1 around line 27 onwards. There is something in the middle of that paragraph that I think is more like an introduction to a paragraph rather than the middle. So have a read through of that particular paragraph and see if you can follow my thinking. So, on the global level, in terms of organization and structure, it works very well. However, there's always an however. This genre that I asked you to write in was an article, meaning that as opposed to the academic essay where your readership is limited and you have you can presume some prior knowledge on behalf of the reader in terms of the topic you're writing about, or at least presume or even expect the reader to pick up this essay or having prior interest in the essay's topic. In this case, the readership is much more diverse and is basically, because I asked you to write for British Army Review, the readership is generally interested in military topics, maybe in security policy. So make sure that your introduction speaks to the reader and tells the reader what is going to happen. I think you frame both Ludwig and his main thesis well in the beginning, but I'd like you to tweak it a little bit so that it invites into the text more readers. Open it up a little bit. You're speaking from a very particular perspective. You're speaking from an army officer perspective. So you're not speaking that much as a theorist, but more as a practitioner. So that's relevant for the reader to know that you are someone who has an opinion about this because this is what you do for a living. So think about that and see if you can tweak that so it becomes more inclusive. So going to the local level of your text, talking about the language, I think you write clearly. I think that you have a good sense of the English language in terms of what is idiomatic and what isn't. Idiomatic means something that is said or written in English. So you avoid structures that sound un-English, is what that means. However, There is a place in the second paragraph where you take me by surprise. The festering pool of self-righteousness and the brewing disaster. This is line 8 to 9 is the festering pool of self-righteousness, and line 11 is the brewing disaster. There's something here that becomes it's an extremely strong expression, festering pool of self-righteousness. Now, it's perfectly okay for you to have an opinion on Ludwig and what he's saying, or journalists, etc. But it's unclear whether you are speaking as if you are him. Should that be in sort of, it can't be in quotation marks because he hasn't said that. But are you taking on his voice like you imagine he would say about politicians, journalists, secretaries huddled together? Or is that your opinion? Either way, it kind of breaks this neutral, matter-of-factly tone that you're striking. And it means you kind of go off register. It's like, okay, so wait until you've established yourself as a writer in the beginning of the text. And wait until you have, in this fairly neutral, straightforward way, described the gist of Ludwig's argument, your argument, and then you can go into the kind of more, the evaluation, basically, the value-based opinion on him. That might merit festering pool of self-righteousness, that type of language. But in the beginning, it's a little odd. So try and avoid changing the tone too dramatically, because it's a very clear signal to the reader that either you're not in control of the English language, which I think in general you are, or you're trying to signal something, and it's not clear what is going on here. However, you do strike a really good tone towards the end, because you clearly want to persuade your reader. So you want something from the reader. You want a change of heart, or a waking up to a new perspective, or something like that. And the tone, I think, is good for that purpose. So it becomes quite pithy in the end, and that's good. So it kind of wobbles a little bit. So it's not consistently excellent, I would say. So it's definitely above average, but there's still some things you can work on. So just to sum it up, make sure that you consider your reader and the genre you're asked to write in. Make sure that your paragraphs are tight. They generally are, but just double check that you don't have a paragraph like the one I mentioned, where the construction seems a bit off. And then stick to one register. And if you change register, do so deliberately and with care. And I see that you can do that. So maybe the festering pool was just a one-off. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say. If you're interested in a grade for your paper, come and see me in class, or find me in at my office. If you prefer not to have a grade, then just don't come and see me. I'm fine either way. But I will see you at the end of September in class. Bye.